Hey guys, Bitcoin on here. Um, Today I want to talk about how Bitcoin demonetizes everything basically. Bitcoin has a higher rate of growth than stocks, bonds, real estate, land, art, all the different asset classes. Bitcoin is growing at a faster rate than all of them basically. It has a higher rate of return, in other words. So Bitcoin, when it has a higher rate of return than stocks, it means that Bitcoin will outlive stocks. Bitcoin will destroy stocks and Bitcoin will outlive stocks. People won't be inclined to put money into stocks when they can get a higher rate of return from holding their money in Bitcoin. And that's why stocks and the stock market is on the way out basically, because Bitcoin has a higher rate of return and investors and pension funds, all the money will flow into Bitcoin. The same with bonds. Bitcoin has a higher rate of return, a higher yield than bonds, so the money will flow to Bitcoin instead of bonds. Bitcoin is already taking money from gold, because if Bitcoin weren't around, there would be an even greater uh, boom and bull market in gold than in Bitcoin. So this is what you've got to know when you're assessing your options and trying to decide where to allocate your savings and your pension funds. Your pension fund, you might have a private pension fund, you might be self-employed and have your own pension fund. So the place to put money is in Bitcoin, and it's in Bitcoin held in your own possession. You need the main thing is that you don't leave your Bitcoin on an exchange, and you don't invest in an ETF, because an ETF is not the same as holding Bitcoin outright in your own custody, in your self-custody. So that means using multi-sig as well. Multi-sig is the ideal way to hold Bitcoin in self-custody. So we'd say you have your funds, basically your retirement funds, your pension funds, in a invested in another fund basically, which would be an Isaac 20 ETF or a FTSE or a New York Stock Exchange or a Nasdaq fund. You want to take it out of that and put it into Bitcoin basically, because Bitcoin has a higher rate of return than stocks and the stock market generally. Nothing beats Bitcoin since its invention 17 years ago, emergence from the cypherpunks and the cypherpunk era of the 80s and 90s. Came Bitcoin in the noughties. 09 Bitcoin was released, and came from a man called Satoshi Nakamoto, a Japanese name, a Japanese individual living in America. That's what is known about the inventor of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin spawned many other cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin. Thousands and thousands of cryptocurrencies exist out there, but they're all just cheap imitations of Bitcoin, and they're not the same as Bitcoin. They're much less, much weaker. They're not the same as, they're not as good as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is decentralized. None of the other cryptos, including Ethereum, Solana, Litecoin, the stable coins, they're not decentralized. Bitcoin is decentralized, and that means effectively that money becomes like a natural resource. It becomes a resource. That's what Bitcoin is. That's the way to view Bitcoin. And the longer you leave it, the less Bitcoin you will own, and the poorer you will be in the future, you and your family. So Bitcoin is the only game in town when it comes to investing. You're throwing money away if you're investing it in stocks, bonds, property. Bitcoin has a higher rate of return, a higher growth rate, an annual growth rate higher than all of the other asset classes, than each one of the other asset classes. So you don't want to waste your hard-earned euros and dollars and fiat. These currencies are called fiat currencies because they're worthless basically, and currently being destroyed by Bitcoin. Bitcoin is breaking up the world order basically. The whole driving force behind the rupturing that we witnessed last week in transatlantic relationships between America and Europe, the rupturing of that relationship has Bitcoin at its core. The driving force behind that change is Bitcoin. Behind all of the changes that are happening in the world, the driving force is Bitcoin today. I'll leave it at that, guys. We'll talk again tomorrow.